What's up guys, welcome back to the garage. So today we're going to be working on a C7 Corvette. We're going to be doing the RGBW DRL upgrades from Diode Dynamics, and it's all going to be controlled through Bluetooth. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Enjoy the video. So we got the headlights off the Vet, pain in the butt to get them off because you have to drop the whole entire bumper. But now we're going to show you how to open these suckers up. They are permasealed and are very difficult to open, so we're going to show you the tips and tricks on how to open up these headlights without cutting them and completely destroying them. So with these headlights, you are going to be using a flathead screwdriver. Unfortunately, you will not be able to gorilla grip them apart because of the sealant. So grab, your little tiny flathead screwdriver. You don't want it too long. You want it to be just right and a good length for you to get a good grip. And what you're going to do is you're going to grab the headlight and you're going to actually start wedging it around. So try to find the easiest open spot. My easy open spot's going to be right next to this clip. I'm going to start here, working my way in. And what I'm doing is I'm separating the lens from the back of the assembly, and the assembly will have the glue stuck to it. So it's going to wedge it out, and you have to work quick because while it's hot, the sealant's at its weakest point. The longer you wait and the longer you take your time, the faster it's going to cool down, and the faster it cools down, the harder it is going to be for you to open. And when it gets too hard, you have to stop and then throw it in for another heat cycle in the oven. Cool, so we got some momentum going. I'm gonna go ahead and shove this in and try to pop the lenses a little bit so I can get some room to play with. Just gotta find the right spot to pry it at. Okay, up here. There you go. It's popping. All right. You can see there, channel's flared out. Gotta keep going. Alright, stop now. I got too cold. It's been a good 5 minutes, so let's wait it out. Show you what we're doing. Again, we're separating the lens from the back of the assembly. You can see here the lens is popped off a little bit, and again the sealant's actually attached to the back of the assembly, or in this case the channels. There's the sealant. We did that all the way across, all the way around, and now the remaining part of it is getting this section to loosen up. So we're going to do it for one more heat cycle, and then we should be able to open it up. Once we get them open, our next focus would be to gut these channels, gut it from the factory sealant, and reshape the channels so they're not all flared out like this. Put it back into its spot. That way we can reseal it and have the factory clamping zones hold the lens down. Alright, so here's round 2 of the headlights. We put it back in there for another 10 minutes. This time we're actually going to pull it apart, and that's it. After we pull them apart, we focus on gutting the channels, and we'll do a time lapse on how that's done. But before I do the time lapse, I'll show you exactly how we start taking off the sealant. So here we go. Okay, so the section that was left is right here. So I'm going to take this guy off, get back with the flathead, and go to town. Cool, so the whole entire thing is already pulled apart. Now on these C7 headlights, I'm going to be careful trying to pull this apart. If you apply too much pressure, this section right here actually flexes, and you can see that as I'm pulling it down. So if you're going to pull it apart, grab a good grip on the strongest part of the headlight, which is right here, pull the lens and start prying it apart like this. Now the hard part is going to be right here. The headlight bezel is actually in the way of the bottom of the lens, so you have to gently pry it apart. So let me see if I can show you that on camera. There we go. There we go. I'm pushing it forward, and just like that, the headlight lens is apart. It's all off. I'm going to take off some of the sealant that's on the inside and on the outside of the lens. That way we have a good proper seal. Now we've already opened up the other set, so before you start gutting the channels, what you want to do is start removing the headlight bezel and the LED board. this is what you're going to see once you get them completely off. The headlight bezel and the LED board will be removed, and this is all you're going to see. You can leave the projector there. I'd recommend covering it and making sure you don't get your gloves or your hands on it. That way the lens doesn't get all dirty. Once you get it open, grab your flathead again, and while it's still hot, you want to start scraping the channels. Right here, you can see we already started scraping it little by little, and now we're working our way up, and then we're going to work our way around the actual headlight assembly all the way around until it's fully off, and the sealing's going to look like this. And you only have so much time to remove it before it gets rock hard. Once it gets cold and it gets rock hard, you have to throw it back in the oven again for another 10 more minutes, so you weaken it, and then again you're going to start chiseling it off. So here we go. So now that we've gutted all the sealing out of the channels, you throw the headlight assembly back into the oven, you reheat it for another 10 minutes, and then when you pull it out, grab some pliers, and you start applying pressure to the channels where you flatter it out with a flathead. That way you can start getting it to reshape into this position that it needs to be. That way you have a good proper seal. So you got to do it all the way around while it's hot, pinch it nice and firmly, all the way around to eliminate any more flaring. That way it's nice and narrow. And once you finish the setup, you clamp them down with some clamps, and you can let it cool down. Again, you gotta do this quick while it's still nice and hot. So the channels are gutted, empty, and they have been reshaped. And while it's still hot, you gotta clamp them down in certain areas, like right here. That way it retains its shape while it cools down. All the way around. There you go. As soon as you clamp them down, it should look something like this. Let it sit there for a good 10-15 minutes, and then you start taking them all off. And then you start laying down the sealing. Now we're going to show you how to install the boards. On the bottom of the DRL, you're going to see 3 screws, 1, 2, and 3. You're going to take those off, and then on the side right here, they're plastic melted down. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab a Dremel and start grinding off the tabs, the plastic tabs, for it to slide out. And then that slides out. Once you get the boards off, you're going to have the Diode Dynamics RGBW DRL boards, and you're going to mount them back into the original position. You're going to mount them back and screw the 3 screws back on top. And then on this guy, you're going to actually plastic melt the tabs down, and I'm going to show you how it's done. While you're screwing these down, you want to keep in mind that you don't want to apply too much pressure. If you apply too much pressure, you'll mess up the board, kink the PCB board, and the LEDs will stop working, or they won't light up properly. Don't tie in it too much. And then this part, we're going to go ahead and slide them in. Those 3 tabs are at. Line them up with the holes that the boards come in. There you go. That's 1, that's 2, and there's 3. Just like that. And this is how you plastic melt them down. You get a hot knife. And you gently apply pressure to where you want these tabs to melt. Start with the middle one, push down, there you go, tabs down, side one, and the last one right here. There you go, they melt down just like that. Blow on it for good luck, and there you go, it doesn't move, it's nice and tight, and now it's ready to install back into the headlight assembly. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab a retro rubber and start laying it out around the channels. That way we have a good seal. You want the rubber to lay right into the channel, so you may want to actually pull and stretch it in case it doesn't fit, because the retro rubber is pretty thick. So focus on getting it in there. Try to get a bigger roll right now. Is in the channel where it needs to be. So now what we're going to focus on next is remounting the DRL board and assembling the headlight bezel and throw it in the oven for the reseal. So now that we have the DRL board mounted, we went ahead and created a wire gland hole for the wiring to come out. Here it is in the back. The hole's been drilled out. It's been glanded, and now it's ready for a proper connection, and that will help you have a proper seal. That way water doesn't get through. A lot of the things we see, people drill holes, the wire comes out and the hole is still exposed. So this is a nice little mod you can use with the headlight to help prevent any water from getting in from the back of the housing. Once you put the headlight bezel back together, one thing I want to remind you is to remember to connect this connection, because this is the factory turn signal for the C7 Corvette. So make sure that's connected before you reseal the headlights. Once you have it all assembled, everything's connected, you're ready for reseal. In this case, we're going to leave the headlight lens put on to the headlight assembly. This way the heat doesn't actually melt the plastic bezel, just for assurance purposes. So that's there. And now we're going to go ahead and set the timer for 10 minutes. Once you get the headlights out of the oven, you apply pressure to them and you start applying the clamps all the way around the headlight. That way, while it cools down, the glue doesn't push the lens away or off the actual assembly. So while it cools down and it's clamped down, it'll stay in that position. So let that sit for about 10-15 minutes, and then we'll mount it back on the car.